Torquay. What was the selling factor behind joining Paul Buckle's side?
Um, well, we I had a soccer school in Northampton, and we had a decent sort of life in Northampton, and I was considering retiring. We were settled in the area, and I was thinking about the next steps. But we actually holidayed in Paignton that year because my wife was heavily pregnant, and we said, well, we're not going to fly. We'll stay in this country. And I just happened to get a phone call from Paul Buckle. In fact, I think I might have sorted the contract out in a zoo, funnily enough, down in Cornwall or Devon somewhere. I asked him to send me over the contract. So I'm in this, I'm God knows what sort of noises are in the background. There's probably, bloody lions roaring or something. I don't know what's going on, but I asked him to print my contract off in a zoo down in Devon when he'd sent it over, and actually signed it there and scanned it back. It's crazy, really. We decided when we were down there, what an adventure this would be. Brilliant for the children. Let's go and spend some Sundays in North Devon and do a bit of surfing, and let's try and give it a go at a club that really wants to be successful. When I met Paul, he had that sort of steely determination and said, look, I'm going to sign some good old players and some good young players, and we're going to give it a go and try and get promoted. So it was an extra, from that point on, I think I was 35, 36. It was just sort of extra years as a pro. I'd sort of got to that 500 league appearances in the playoff game for Brentford, actually, at Sheffield Wednesday. So anything after that was going to be a bonus, and it was.
Yeah, because at the beginning of your Torquay career, you made it all the way to Wembley in the FA Trophy, but obviously eventually losing out in the final swervely. Talk a little bit about that day. Obviously, it ended without being successful in the FA Trophy, but a great experience to play.
Yeah, it was. We again that season won a lot of games. I think I played 60 or 65 games that season as a 36-year-old, and the trophy was great, and we had a good run in the FA Cup. Got to the fourth or fifth round in the FA Cup as well that season. So played a lot of games in that, a lot of games on TV. Setanta were covering us at the time, and we had a lot of interest.
I remember them. Yeah,
exactly. We had a lot of interest from Setanta, and it was great. We were very close to going up automatic. Did the cup runs affect us? Maybe. And as you rightly say, got to the trophy final. I think there was 35,000 there, 40,000, I remember, on the day. A lot of people, because they'd done a sort of, I don't know how they'd done it, but they'd arranged something with the Ebbsfleet fans that would get a ticket at a certain price. And so there was, a hell of a lot of fans there that day. But our build-up was too long. And Paul Buckle said this afterwards when we reviewed the Wembley experience, and said, we were there for 5 days. We trained at Watford beforehand. We were stuck in a hotel room. And bearing in mind, this was after we'd lost in the playoffs to Exeter, our massive rivals. We were 3-1 up. We were coasting. I probably had the Wembley T-shirt ready. And we got pipped in the last 9 minutes and lost the game. And I've got to tell you, that was pain. That was major pain. And I was also coaching Exeter at the time, which was even more painful. Oh. So having to walk in that club as a Torquay player was difficult. But at the end of the season, when we reviewed everything, and Wembley's not a nice place to lose, and I couldn't wait to get off that pitch. All this walking around nonsense and saying great days, it's ridiculous. No matter what level you play at, and every player I've come across says the same. Clap the fans, definitely, and appreciate their efforts and the finances that have taken to get them there. But get away, because it's a non-event if you lose there. It's an absolute non-event for me. So that was difficult. And then the following season, we sat down and had a chat with Bucks, and he said, "Please give it one more season. You're going to be the captain. You're going to lead us to promotion. Are you up for it?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." And we did one better that season, and fortunately went up.
Yeah, you did. You went on to achieve success, winning the playoff final against Cambridge United. And guess what? You scored two, Chris. What a way
I
to
did.
round off a perfect season.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it was a combination that season of three things. One was the achievement on the pitch as an older pro, and two was that the media was starting to kick off because I was writing a blog even back then. Imagine it now; it would be brilliant. But back then, it was just like an old school blog for a paper. And I used to be doing things like I'd film myself having an ice bath in agony, or I had a mate who used to hire cars, so I'd go and get this cabriolet and park it outside a country house and pretend it was mine and say, "Hi, honey, I'm home." You know, those types of things that people do on social media now. But so that was happening. The coaching was happening, a bit of media, and on the pitch, because I was so relaxed and these were extra years. I was able to, I suppose, help some of the younger lads and really enjoy my football. And really, to be honest, had I had that knowledge when I was 17, 18, it'd have been very different, because you've got a calmness about you. You know you can reset and refocus in a game. And that's what I'd say to any young player now. And I have done, you know, when things are tough, or even in a game, in the midst of a battle, just reset yourself, thinking of a few things. You can do anything, draw a little smiley face on your hand. You can wear a type of strapping around your hand with a message, anything to get that mind to refocus. But that just happened naturally as an older pro, because, you know, what's the worst that can happen? You give a ball
Yeah.
away, so what? Fans get on your back, so what? It's over in 10 minutes. But yeah, go.
Of course, like you said. Go on.
No, sorry, go on, Jacob. Carry on, mate.
Well, I was just going to comment there and say, obviously, going one better in that following season and getting promotion. Was there a turning point along the way on that journey, a particular game where you thought, okay, you know, we've got the minerals here to do one better and go on and get promoted that season?
There was two games probably. One was the game that we probably realised we weren't going to go up automatic, and there was a bit of pressure then on the club, and there was talk of management changes and this, that, and the other. And we had the old honesty chat. Some of those chats can work really well. I've been in changing rooms as a coach, manager, and player when they've gone great, and I've also been in changing rooms when they haven't. And there's too much honesty and there's too much pain, and it opens up things that ultimately never resolve well enough. But in this occasion, it did. It galvanised us as a team and a group of lads, and we were very close. All of us. We were in and out of each other's houses, and I don't say that in a dodgy sense. I say it in a good sense. And there was one game where we played at Barrow away, and I was having a lot of back problems towards the end, so I was paying for a chiropractor off my own back. And Damien Davey at the time, the physio, was doing all sorts of magic tricks with me with injections and painkillers. But we played at Barrow away, and I remember on the day of the game, we stopped at or the day before might have been, stopped at an old non-league ground to do a bit of shape. And I couldn't actually walk. The back was just too stiff. And I went in to see Dame on the night. I said, "Mate, I'm just in agony. You've got to do something." I can't tell you exactly what went on in that room that night. Again, it's not dodgy in any other sense. But put it this way, I played the next day, or the next evening, as it were, at Barrow, and we were awful. We were terrible. It was a tough place to play, but I managed to sclaff one in with my right foot, and we got a draw. That at that point, I came in the change room, and it was a bit of anger, stroke leadership, stroke annoyance that we were maybe going to blow it again. And I just maybe read the right tact and kicked a few things and sort of lost it, because I felt the responsibility for me as a captain was for us to get promoted. So it was partly my anger and frustration and a little bit of fear coming out that we couldn't blow it. And that was a big moment that season, because we then won in the playoffs to get to the final.
Yeah. I mean, fast forward it a little bit, Chris. I mean, obviously you then decided to give up your playing days and go into coaching. Was it always Was that always a plan? Was that always something you were going to go? You were going to go and do. You were always going to go and go
Yeah,
into management.
I think so. I think so. Having captained the last two clubs I was at, Torquay and Oxford, and having successes at both of those clubs in different ways,
Yeah.
I felt like it. I could help players, and I could maybe use my experiences, good and bad. And yeah, even towards the end at Torquay, being a captain, being promoted, you felt like you could help in a session or do things. And then the coaching with Exeter on a Tuesday and Wednesday on a Sandy AstroTurf, coaching some great players, as I said before, Ollie Watkins, Matt Grimes, these players that have gone on to have real big money moves and do well. But what you have to do as well, you've got to do the courses. You've got to go and take the courses and try and put yourself out there to get the qualifications to coach and manage, which I think any player, and Gareth would say, I know you've had Gareth on, great guy, brilliant bloke, get on really well with him. He'd say the same. You've got to put the work in to get the reward.
Yeah, and of course, during that period as well at AFC Bournemouth, being under 23 manager and also a first team coach, did that really set the foundations? And did it really provide you with the skills and the insight to go on and become a coach? Did you learn a lot there?
I did. I learned a lot with Paul. Obviously, unfortunately, I played with Paul at Grimsby, and he became the manager and asked me to take the 23s. But then, unfortunately, Paul was sacked, and Eddie took over. And within a very short space of time, because he had an affinity with the club previously, there was a huge shift in fan momentum, or not fan momentum, fan support or love or affinity with Eddie, and it was a brilliant experience. I've got to be honest. I got on really well with Eddie, JT, and Perchy and Mossy and all the staff there. That many of them are still there, and it was just attention to detail. Eddie knew that I was employed by Paul previously and spent a little time with me watching me coach the 21s and then said, I'd like you to come up, and which was great news. And then it was all about attention to detail and telling the likes of Simon Francis or Charlie Daniels or Harry Hart or Ryan Fraser that you're going to go from, a League One position of peril to go on and play at an elite level. And it was a lot of hours watching games and coaching and planning, and a lot of detail into how can we play out, how can we break a press, how can we play through the thirds, how can we rotate in wide areas. I'm going into loads of detail, but I can't underestimate the attention to detail that Eddie has and we have to have as coaches with him. So getting promoted that season was obviously a massive achievement, albeit we had a wealthy owner in Max Denning. You've still got to produce the goods on the pitch.
Yeah, and of course, January 2014, you're appointed Torquay manager. But before we go on to that, and with which James will mention shortly, what sort of philosophy did you have when it came to coaching? How did you like your teams to play?
Good question, and the honest answer now is you have to have your plan A, your plan B, your plan C. You can go all the way, but certainly if you've not got A, B, and C, you're struggling. Now, I'll be honest and say that having played the way we played at Bournemouth in a classic 4-2-3-1 at that point, we would dominate teams in possession. We would play out, and not playing out. Playing out can be looked at as and I'm sure, thousands, millions of fans look at playing out and say, ridiculous. They're playing it round the back. What are they doing? Essentially, it's because the statistics of kicking a ball long and retaining possession are shocking. So can we clip to a fullback? Can we all shift one side and reverse it to your fullback who's dropped off for the ball? Or can we just play to your centre halves and keep the ball? So that was a philosophy that was ingrained in me. Maybe at Grimsby, first of all, with Alan Buckley, who played like that. It was revolutionary at the time, but then definitely with Eddie. Did I get it wrong a little bit when I went to Torquay and we were playing on what can only be described at times as fields? Yes, I did. And did I have plan B in that type of player? I tried to get one, but no, I didn't. So you need both if you're going to be successful. And if you tell me get promoted, I think I'll know how to get promoted, and I'll do it with what the players can do. The players, are they good at getting on the bits and getting on the second ball and playing forward passes all the time? Do that. If you've got highly technical players who will keep the ball and overload a midfield, we're going to play. So maybe I try to mould players into playing that way too quickly, because ultimately we didn't do what I wanted to do. Which when I look back at it, I had the decision to make with Northampton and Torquay, and chose Torquay maybe because I'd captained the club, at the steps of Wembley, and all that emotion makes you make that decision. And when I met Thea, the owner, she said, you'll have two great things. You'll have money, a survival pot, and you'll have a training ground. When I sat in the seat on the first day and I said to the lads, where are we training? And they said, the training ground's underwater. You've got to find somewhere. And the second week, Thea said, there's no money. That's when I knew I was in big trouble. And there's probably not a week that goes past that I don't think about it. And it was a long time ago. And that tells you how painful it was. Wow. I've had redemption since with staying up with Rovers as assistant, but I didn't 100% do enough due diligence to that role, especially when I was an aspiring first team coach at Bournemouth. Now there's another connection here, because the day that we officially went down, another manager that you've had on stayed up. Who is that? There's a quiz question for you.
Ainsworth?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we hugged each other after the game, and we respect each other as players. We played against each other, a fair few times. And obviously there was a bit of pain in my eyes that day for the obvious.
He spoke about that day, and he said that he was standing at the edge of the dugout and looked over towards the Wycombe fans and said, if this is the way we're going down, this is it. And he said all the raw emotion just kind of hit him, and he thought, this surely can't be it. And he said he even looks back to that day at Torquay now, even now being like in the Championship, and he said that is those days that make you as coaches.
Yeah, no, it is, and I've had those days where we've survived, and I've survived as a player and survived as a coach, or been promoted.
Yeah,
you've got to learn from all of them. But I suppose, and we had a hug on the day, and I said, brilliant, well done, and as you have to as a man and a manager. Yeah. But you've got to ultimately, if you're going to jump and make the bid for a manager's job, make sure you've got one of two things: a training ground or grass every week to be able to coach players relentlessly on a half decent surface. And I don't mean a bowling green, I mean a half decent surface. Or you've got money to go, bang, there you go, son. There's X amount a week. You're going to score me the goals to keep me up. If you haven't got them, don't take the job.
Yeah.
Because emotion will take over and you're going to make the wrong decision. You could align that to any job, couldn't you?
Yeah.
It just so happens that it's so high profile football that everyone's going to know about it.
Did you wish you'd gone and seen the facilities and things like that before you'd gone? You went and took the job.
Well, I went back there for BT Sport recently, and I won't tell you who I bumped into. I bumped into somebody who said that there's still a hell of a lot of not bad feeling, but I suppose sympathy for the scenario I was put in. When I said yes, there was a certain survival fund. Did that materialise? No, it didn't. Did I spit my dummy out at the time? No, I didn't, because you've got to get on with it. And yes, I made mistakes, but as I say, it wasn't so much the money, because I think you can get enough out of players. Players are good, honest lads. They want to do well. Come on, they all do. But it was for me as a coach. It was that the first 4 games were called off at home.
Wow.
this type of madness. That there was nowhere to train. I'm training in a sports hall, or I could only get an AstroTurf from 9 till 10 in the morning, or we had to train on a beach. All these things, it was just non-conducive to producing. And even though I think we won 5 of the last 7 games, and the day we went down, I mean, I think we went down 4 points adrift, and I took over 4 points adrift. It was marginally better than the previous set of points, but not enough. And that game at Mansfield, where I was playing a lot of young kids, and we won 3-1, but other results didn't go for us. It was tough. It was tough going into that change room. And don't get me wrong, I've done it the other way, where I've said, listen, we're at the top of the world, we're promoted, this is great. But going into that changing room and seeing those fans and, fighting back those tears, it either makes a man of you, or you're going to sit in a corner and get your tummy tickled and not come out of the room for the next, few years. But that's football, isn't it?